Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon. I know that in the third Ashra of Ramzan and on a Friday after the Friday prayers may not be the best place for a very deep intellectual discussions, but paradoxically it may also be a very relevant place to actually discuss on such issues. I am pleased to be here to share my views at this August forum regarding the compound warfare, which is basically what is a combination of hybrid and grey zone, and plausible responses approaches for Pakistan. I am gratified to see the remarkable level of participation today, for I can see eminent scholars, renowned diplomats, speakers from abroad, and I can also see some very energetic young youth at the back. Ladies and gentlemen, universal peace is an idealistic notion, whereas conflicts or wars have existed since time immemorial. Competition and anarchy is embedded in the structure of international system. The nation states and composition of human society therefore often leads to conflict or war. The 21st century warfare is no more a military or military episode. Rather, war has morphed beyond our current conceptions. It falls outside the neat intellectual box and the nebulous domains, sometimes referred as therefore hybrid warfare, or what I now call as the grey zone hybrid conflicts. Without getting into the deep theoretical underpinnings and owing to the collectivity of the enormous challenges that this type of warfare poses at our national, military and strategic level, as I said, I tend to call it as a grey hybrid conflict or put together as a compound warfare. To me, a grey hybrid conflict is a tailored mix of subversion, terrorism, irregular warfare tactics, economic warfare, information warfare, social engineering, societal disruptions, conventional application, especially the special operations, and finally criminal behavior in the same time and battle space to obtain what I call as the political objectives. Grey hybrid conflict is a deliberate blending and blurring of various modes of warfare in which conflicts are as much political as military. The key enablers of the grey hybrid conflict in the country are political instability, weak institutions, socio-economic disparity, porous borders, ethnicity and sectarianism, organized crime, corruption, and prevalent societal injustices. In grey hybrid conflict, the character of the conflict continues to transform and includes both sides of the coin, that is kinetic and non-kinetic, lethal and non-lethal, geographical and non-geographical, traditional and non-traditional, physical and cognitive, conventional and subconventional. The grey hybrid conflict is therefore considered both an unarmed and an armed conflict involving strategic, operational and tactical cooperation and coordination between regular and irregular forces, both operating simultaneously. In the absence of legislation on what will be called as an act of war and what we consider as a combat zone, it creates a response dilemma for the nations. We may say that the grey hybrid conflict is waged without a moral philosophy. It has revised the conventional framework of warfighting, and it has distorted the fabric of the balance of power. It is characterized by undefined battle space and can manifest anywhere on the borders, or more importantly, deep inside the state itself. When waged in the cyber realm, it amplifies the use of strategic ambiguity, i.e., neither confirming or denying the use of force, also creating and shaping an environment for attainment of the strategic objective. More of this a little later as I speak. The grey hybrid conflict does not target clear battle lines. Rather, we may have to face far less certainty about who is attacking us, or even the realization that we are being attacked. This grey hybrid spectrum is inclusive, therefore, of proxies and powers. Proxies not only including terror outfits, rather in the shape of economic hitmen, socially engineered movements, disguised NGOs, penetrated media, clandestine non-state actors, and pseudo-intellectuals favoring surrender of the state's sovereignty, wherein state actors are seen operating through an invisible foreign strings, and therefore whispering campaigns hitting at the symbols of ideology and nationhood, and a range of smart options, including cybernetics, demographic manipulations, and geoengineering, etc. So while the proxies are employed to shape, redesign, reconfigure the strategic culture of a nation, they may also be used to coerce or compel the state behavior for desired outcome, pending application of power if still required. In case required, the final kill is administered through an astute mix of hard and soft powers, especially in the chosen kill boxes, so as to defang, demilitarize, and denude the nations of their centers of gravity. The desired end state of the combined applications of what I call the proxies and power is a re-engineered DNA of a nation, deprived of strategic autonomy with a subservient strategic culture. Ladies and gentlemen, let us pause here for a moment and consider why there is a change in the way wars are being waged these days. To me, this transformation of classic military-on-military contest to a grey hybrid conflict or a compound warfare can be attributed to the following factors. First, the advent of nuclear weapons restricting the space and means for warfare. Secondly, the evolution of moral standards, detesting use of hard power or conventional war, which may not be publicly palatable. Most of all, transformation in the framework of international relations, erstwhile state-to-state interaction included only three players, namely the government, armed forces, and the people. But imprint and adoptive technologies and the rise of non-state actors have changed the complexion of the state-to-state behavior. Therefore, before I move further, I'm also reminded of 1971. Though the term grey hybrid conflict was not coined by that time yet, it was applied ingeniously against Pakistan with toxic results. We have already been bitten once in Pakistan. In the wake of culture and conventional invasion by our adversary, I am a personal witness in those days to the inadequacies of our state response at that time, including a muddled diplomacy, reactive strategic communication, inept role of the national media, dubious civil rights organizations, jaundiced pseudo-intellectuals, alien teachers, and designed whispering campaigns. I'm also witness to how a smart mix of conventional and sub-conventional forces were provided training, logistics, and support bases in 1971 close to our borders to fit in a more internationally accepted legal framework of right to protect. It is unfortunate yet interesting to study the Operation Jackpot, that how the external environment was shaped to breed resentment on the internal front, exploiting leverages over intelligentsia and elite, using culture, ethnic affinity as a tool of premeditated influence campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, it is very prudent, therefore, to unlock the grey hybrid conflict into various stages, which at times may be sequential or simultaneous, and on other occasions may be more multi-layered or multidimensional with blurring lines. Hypothetically, for the purpose of understanding the grey hybrid conflict is likely to progress in 5 stages. In stage 1, it involves resetting the strategic narrative of a country. The societal and structural remapping of a country is undertaken by manipulation of socio-political vulnerabilities, that is ethnic, religious, socio-economic disparities, human rights, and misgovernance issues, etc. Once the stage is set and the narrative has been built, it envisions weakening of the state's structure by inducing insurgencies, terrorism, cyber threats in sync with hostile actors. This brings us to stage 3, where the cohesion of the state may be broken by targeting the holy trinity of the government, the armed forces, and the people. Lack of public confidence in the state and state institutions, including the military, is the hallmark of this stage. In case of failure of internally induced movements and measures, globally recognized sanctions are imposed to coerce and compel the target state. In stage 4, all elements achieve synchronization under one strategic script. Mayhem would be ensured to coerce the state on core issues, and this time overtly. And stage 5 finally is kineticism. Instead of non-kinetic activities, it is in lead at this time in this stage through an engineered, triggered event which is designed to inflame internal and external hostile elements into a physical action, such as occupation of important installations, civil disobedience, and resulting into an internal collapse, which may be exploited by external conventional forces. Ladies and gentlemen, it is worth highlighting that grey hybrid conflict has the ability to skip or overlap these various stages. Before I focus on Pakistan, I would like to visualize the global and regional context in which this grey hybrid environment is being played out in the nation states, but more specifically in Pakistan. Internationally, the world is undergoing a transition, mainly in 4 domains. First, there is a shift in polarity from a unipolar to a graduated multipolar world. Second, there are resultant changes in geopolitical trajectory, both internationally and regionally. Third, there is a re-emergence of the great power contestation recalibration of the balance of power arrangements with emphasis on issue-based partnerships instead of traditional alliances. And finally, the colliding waves of globalization versus what is now known as populism. Looking at the emerging trend, we can see that 90% of the global youth lives in the developing countries. If left unemployed, it has the potential of being recruited by anti-state actors through inducements and incentives. Social media is shaping the opinion. Besides being used as a handy disinformation machine, a simple tweet can change the strategic security environment. Violent actors are using social media as a disruptive and destructive recruitment tool. Refugees and immigrants can increase the risk of social disturbances. International organizations and selected NGOs offer diversity of means available for international coercion. Digitization enhances vulnerability of the state and the armed forces, especially when exposed to cyber attacks, both by the state and non-state actors. Increasing dominance of the unmanned military capability through involvement of military robots and artificial intelligence-powered weaponry. Also, militarization of the global commons, including the outer space and, more importantly, the sea. In this background, I feel that Pakistan is likely to remain a country of significance in modern geostrategic and geoeconomic contestation, whereas sources of stability or instability are hinged around its strategic and economic relevance. This, coupled with a volatile neighborhood characterized by the trending phenomena of grey hybrid conflict, is continuously attempting to turn our geostrategic significance into a geostrategic challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now focus on the manifestation of the grey hybrid conflict in Pakistan. The grey hybrid threats to Pakistan are not new, as I've already alluded to, as in case of 1971. In case of Pakistan, it is externally supported, asymmetrical conflict, ruthlessly unleashed to sabotage our geostrategic and geoeconomic interests. Hostile and unstable neighbors provide classic environment to sandwich Pakistan into a grey hybrid security challenge. The current strategic thrust deficit is blurring the line between the state of war and the state of peace. The Afghan refugees, obviously spread all over Pakistan, have meshed into the society, which unfortunately render a space readily available to militants to recruit, morph and mutate. This is supplemented by state-sponsored lobbying campaigns unleashed by our adversaries who, in their opinion, want to isolate Pakistan internationally. Besides fueling rift between some major international powers, selected international institutions, and Pakistan. At this moment in time, all available options, ranging from non-state actors to ethnic and sectarian conflicts and information operations, are being utilized by inimical forces. Our national fabric, our armed forces, our general populace, and our leadership is being targeted. Some of the live examples of the grey hybrid conflict are economic coercion, some anti-CPAC activities, manipulation and violation of water treaties, disproportionate and foreign-driven projection of socially engineered movements by selected media houses internationally, continuous upward trend in border violations along eastern and western borders. Ladies and gentlemen, within the realm of this grey hybrid conflict, influence operations are conducted to spread disinformation, falsify facts, and therefore accordingly mold not only the state, but more importantly, the public perceptions and public opinion. We are living in an age of information where news travels faster than an avalanche. Therefore, cyber distortions through even a simple tweet or a false news item has the potential to re-image falsehood into simple truth. This is the world of fake news, truly described as the post-truth world. Let me here refer to the live example of a cyber distortion wherein a fake, fabricated, concocted news regarding destruction of a state in 12 minutes became not only the talk of the town, but also the region and the world. I was in Rome at that time when this fabricated news resurfaced. A reputed journalist inquired about the veracity of this news, to which I questioned back, "What is your take on this?" He paused for a moment and stated that it was a fake news from a weak, obscure source, and he termed it as a journalistic dishonesty. While tracking back of this new fake news, certain very interesting facts came to fore that I'd like to share. Firstly, the fake news originated from an obscure Western online media group called the AWD News in mid-October 2016, so 1.5 years old. This statement was attributed to me as the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff Committee, an appointment that was only announced and aired a month later in November 2016. This false news was recycled in January 18, followed by recycling in May 2018. Let me share with you some interesting statistics and web hosting details of this false, fictitious, and fabricated news. There were 71 news agencies, web portals, and social media handlers involved in this hybrid attack, out of which 25 were located in India, 17 in Western countries, and 5 in Middle East. Besides many unknown news agencies and obscure web portals across the globe. Unfortunately, even within Pakistan, the news were further spread by 4 web portals and 12 social media handlers. This live example, ladies and gentlemen, reflects the scale, scope, level, and depth of such maneuvering and the effects that they intend to achieve both in the strategic and political domain. Ladies and gentlemen, over the years, some hostile intelligence agencies have tied up with centrifugal forces and terrorists to exploit domestic fault lines, thus posing threat to our beloved country. Various groups involved in terrorism and anti-state activities in Pakistan have local lineages, but have been used as an instrument by these hostile intelligence agencies through covert support to destabilize Pakistan and weaken our internal front. I have no doubt that the arrest of Mr. Gulbhushan Yadav from Balochistan amply exposes this scheme. He is, if you still require, the smoking gun of the grey hybrid warfare against Pakistan. In fact, we are subjected to a triple grey hybrid challenge wherein tools of the third, fourth, and fifth generation are being employed simultaneously. The main objective of this compound warfare, which has been unleashed, is to weaken the state by targeting its growth projections and causing an internal dissuasion and dissension. After having talked about the conceptual contours of the compound threat and the way it is being unleashed systematically against Pakistan, let me now offer a few comments about response framework. The grey hybrid conflicts place a concept challenge as to where the locus of response should reside. Should it be ascribed to only defense apparatus or intelligence agencies or political diplomatic measures, or should it be something as close and unique and tailored state interagency construct? Reliance on kinetic measures only to checkmate non-linear threats is no longer an option. And modern statecraft must be able to offer holistic response to emerging complex, unpredictable internal and external security landscape. As grey hybrid conflicts are no longer declared and having begun according to an unfamiliar template, therefore, theoretically speaking, hybrid war should lead to hybrid solutions. There is no definitive formula in the playbook for fighting out a grey hybrid conflict. However, such conflicts require an equally well-integrated, cross-functional, multi-dimensional solution, including a mix of diplomacy, deterrence, and use of imaginative tools of the statecraft, ready and arrayed military strengths, influence campaigns, and all conceivable means available at the disposal of the state. At the state level, an integrated approach offers the best solution in shape of formulation of a combined interagency teams that could coordinate the diplomatic, political, military, ideological, intellectual, and information activities of what I call as a part of the whole of nation approach. This whole of a nation approach, or a comprehensive national response, is predicated upon a whole of government and a whole of societal components ably supported by law enforcement and intelligence agencies. In kinetic domain, part of the answer lies in increased readiness, special operation forces, but most importantly, more and proactive intelligence. However, to prevent manipulation of internal fault lines, psychosocial triggers, pressure points including human rights, religious, sectarian and political ethnic sensitivities, and a sagacious handling and timely socio-economic measures promoting national harmony are therefore needed more than ever. For a country like Pakistan, the ideological response forms the backbone of the whole of nation approach. It is heartening to note that recently more than 1,800 scholars from all schools of the Islamic thoughts of Pakistan have issued a fatwa, Paigam-e-Pakistan, which gives out the conceptual contours of a tolerant and a progressive Pakistan as per the true teachings of our glorious religion, Islam. The Paigam-e-Pakistan rightly urges that use of force in the garb of implementation of some way of life of some people, an armed struggle against the state, or the use of violence to settle ethnic, geographical, religious, and sectarian disagreements are contrary to the basic injunctions of Sharia. For the stability and defense of the country, all such tendencies are to be rooted out through all possible administrative, educational, intellectual, and defensive measures. The strategic contours of Pakistan's national strategy against grey hybrid conflict can be summed up in the acronym Secure Pakistan. Secure Pak. Secure means constitutional, ideological, informational, and institutional space is to be secured to deny degenerative structural and negative societal remapping or reimaging of a state. For the Pak, there are three things. P stands for prevent, that is to prevent hostile actors to manipulate perceived relative deprivations amongst masses through people-friendly socio-economic uplift policies and mainstreaming of neglected area, as we have done in case of FATA now, and that is a case in point. A is to avert fissures in the state and people relationship through a synchronized and cooperative interagency mechanism, constant reassurances at all levels, including National Security Committee, and by undertaking all possible economic, administrative, educational, intellectual, and defensive measures against strategic compellence or strategic coercion. And finally, K is the kinetic, the least part, but still remains important, response to any external misadventure through a notched up deterrence, come defense strategies, harmonized application of all instruments of state. In Pakistan, our lofty will of the nation is our greatest asset. Ladies and gentlemen, we continue to feel and experience the grey hybrid threat, but we do so also continue to respond with conviction and innovation. Such dirty tactics will not deter Pakistan from pursuing its rightful destiny with honor and grace, in sync with our friends and partners. To conclude, ladies and gentlemen, the 21st century contestation or conflict marks the return of Machiavelli or Kotiala's approach to war, wherein the notion of deep operation has undergone profound changes, as instead of front lines and battlefields, the grey hybrid conflict is expected to be fought in the backyard of political, economic, societal, information, and cyber domain. Therefore, today we are witnessing the grey hybrid conflict being manifested through a combination of hard power and soft power, and manifested through such theories and creative chaos such as shock and awe, Mosque Revoca, and fire and fury. Modern warfare is characterized by calculated ambiguity, controlled chaos, and a perplexing complexity. I envisage that the future grey hybrid conflict in the region shall be fought by foreign-sponsored non-state actors and inserted proxies under the overall hand of influence operations, so as to achieve strategic end state rather than traditional conventional military-to-military conflict, obviously in our case under a nuclearized environment. To stave off such challenges, let us join hands to nurture a society that promotes unity, faith, discipline, tolerance, brotherhood, mutual respect, and offers a comprehensive system of justice, besides a continuous upgradation of our kinetic and non-kinetic interagency response mechanisms through strengthening of our state institutions and our state processes. An important ingredient of our response is and that is at the heart of it, is our cooperation with our global and our regional partners, obviously within the permissible limits of our national interests and our priorities.
Please subscribe to Hums Up TV and hit the notification icon on the screen to get the latest updates of our channel. Thank you for watching Hums Up TV.